Welcome everyone to Rewards Are All Around, which is week 1 of our really reliable recall course. This week we're going to be focusing on rewards and punishments, with more emphasis on the rewards. And we're going to be thinking about the way in which rewards are everywhere, and they're not just treats and toys, but more of that in a moment. So first of all, why are you doing this course? If you just take a few seconds and think about what's motivated you to decide to enroll on this course. Perhaps you want your dog to come when you call it in the park. Perhaps you want to impress your friends, family and loved ones with your well-trained dog. Perhaps you want to spend some quality time with your dog outside. Or maybe you just want to get out of the house more. And you want to train your dog outside rather than in a hall. So there could be lots of different reasons why you're doing this course. And different reasons will apply to different people. So guess what? The reasons that you're taking this course, these things which have motivated you to part with your hard-earned cash, these are your rewards. So these are what you're going to be rewarded by if you do this course. I want you to think about why you go to work, if you go to work, or why you went to work if you no longer go to work. To get paid, it's the obvious reason why most people go to work. To feel valued by others, and to feel that you're contributing something. To contribute to society, because you enjoy your job. For social contact, and these are your rewards for going to work. So this is what motivates you to go to work, and it's unlikely that you would go to work if whatever particular motivation was here didn't exist. So those are your rewards. One more. If you drive, do you speed, and why? You get somewhere faster. You have more time then, because you've got there faster. You can be more productive with your day. You avoid the boredom of driving slowly. So that would be avoiding a punishment. Constitutes a reward in that case. These are your rewards. So that's your reward. Those are your rewards for speeding, if you like. If you don't speed, why don't you speed? You're afraid you'll get caught. You're afraid that you'll hurt someone. You have a punitive superego which won't let you transgress. Okay, perhaps not that one. These are your punishments. So we're not really going to focus on punishments because we don't really use punishment. Well, that's not true exactly, but we won't get into that. There is a punishment involved. We are getting into it now, but there is a punishment involved if you withhold a reward. So if your dog expects it's going to get a treat and it doesn't get one, that in effect has a punishing effect on your dog, because your dog realizes that it did something which made it lose the treat. So punishment isn't just what you might think a punishment is, i.e. something physical and painful and horrible. It can just be losing a reward. That can be a punishment. Okay, let's go on. So what have we learned so far? We've learned that rewards and punishments are personal, and they're decided by you alone. Not everyone is deterred from speeding by these punishments, and some people work all day for the minimum wage. Others won't work unless the pay is much higher. So you decide what constitutes a reward and a punishment for you personally, and what someone else might be prepared to work for as a reward might not be what you're prepared to work for. So in doggy terms, some dogs will work for 2 pieces of dry kibble, other dogs won't, and it's your dog who decides what constitutes a reward, not you. So you might want to train your dog and give your dog a bit of dry kibble as a reward, but if your dog doesn't see that as being an adequate reward, you're not going to have much success in training it. So really it's your dog who decides what is rewarding, and the first thing really that we have to do when you're training a dog is figure out what is my dog motivated by and what is it prepared to work for. And then once we have control over those rewards, ultimately we have control over the dog. So the first thing is to figure out what your dog has decided is rewarding. So what else have we learned? We can think of the world as a continuous flow of rewards and punishments. For example, You got out of bed this morning for work. That would be a reward because you're getting out of bed to go to work and to get paid. So that's what motivates you to get out of bed. And that reward outweighed the reward of staying in your bed. 2. You put your slippers on. That was a reward. It was nice, soft, warm slippers, and you avoided contact with the cold, hard floor. And so on through your day. So think about decisions in your life. From tiny decisions, the decision to take a fork from the cutlery drawer, the decision to place one foot in front of the other to walk, through to major life changes, the decision to move house, the decision to change jobs, the decision to give up work. And think about them in terms of rewards and punishments. So your entire life can be viewed through the lens of maximizing pleasure and minimizing unpleasure. There are lots of other ways to view your life, and that is a bit of a simplistic way to view it, but for the purposes of what we're trying to understand here, let's do that. So think about your life in terms of maximizing pleasure and minimizing unpleasure. And so can your dog's life be viewed in that way. Your dog is also trying to maximize pleasure and minimize unpleasure. So what are your dog's rewards on walks? And remember that your dog decides what his or her rewards are. So you might be walking around with treats in your pocket, but if your dog has not decided that that is an adequate reward, then it's not really going to work. Okay, so rabbits. That's very rewarding. Dogs like to go and chase rabbits and smell around where rabbits were. Birds. Birds are exciting. They fly away when the dog runs up to them. Dogs can chase them a little way, and they smell very interesting, especially if you've got a gun dog or hound or something with a very active nose. Other dogs, they're also rewards when you're on a walk. Your dog's going to want to run up and check out other dogs and sniff them and say hello, and that social contact is highly rewarding. And especially if your dog likes to play with other dogs, there's a lot of fun involved in that too. So that's a major reward. Poo. Lots of poo out there of all descriptions. And it's out there available for your dog to go and eat and access. And that's a reward because a lot of dogs think that's incredibly tasty. Marking, that's a reward. Dogs like to mark their territory and to say, it's a bit like graffiti, it's about saying I was here. So that's very rewarding. Sniffing. Sniffing is rewarding as well. It's very interesting to smell different scents and to smell, well, game scent and other dog scent and all kinds of exciting smells. That's rewarding. Toys. So this is now something that involves you, finally. So a toy, dogs like to play Tuggy particularly. And food. That's another thing that involves you. Hopefully not donuts. But yes, food. So which of these rewards fit in your pockets? And okay, poo fits in your pocket, but do you want to put it there? Toys, obviously, fit in your pocket. So if you're going to use toys as a reward, we're talking about recalls here particularly, an interactive game is needed. So Tuggy is usually the best choice. It takes longer to reward with a toy than with treats. So if you call your dog back and you're going to have a game as a reward, you can't just give it the toy and let it have it by itself because it's not very interesting and it's not rewarding enough. You need to have an interactive game with the dog playing Tuggy, for example. And so therefore it takes longer to reward with a toy because you have to have that game. So a treat takes about 2 seconds to administer to your dog, whereas a game with a toy takes longer. The toy will be higher value if it's new, or if access to it is usually denied. So if you go to the pet shop and you pick up some new toys and don't let your dog play with them by itself or give them for any other reason to your dog, then that toy will be much higher value to your dog when you call it back for a recall reward. Stop playing when the dog still wants more. So don't keep playing until your dog is so tired it starts to sniff the grass and gets bored and does other things. You want to stop while your dog still wants more, so that your dog really strongly associates this game with fun and with knowing that it's fun, rather than thinking, oh, this is the game, it's a bit boring, I remember this game now, I got bored last time. So you really want to stop when the dog still wants more, so that you maintain this as something which is incredibly motivating. And Tuggy toys should be soft, so something that you can really pull really hard on in your dog's mouth, and particularly dogs with soft mouths like gun dogs and hounds as well. They tend to have soft flews. That's another word for their lips, and they tend to prefer to play with soft, tuggy toys, and they won't really play tug very well if you try to play with a harder toy. So soft, fleecy, tuggy toys are usually best. Growling is okay. It's okay if your dog growls when you're playing tug. It just means it's getting really excited and it's really having a lot of fun. Any contact with your hand is not okay. Any contact with teeth on your hand, I should say, is not okay. If that happens, you should say ow and let go of the tuggy and ignore the dog for 5 seconds. So that's quite important, so your dog doesn't think that it can just mouth you and chomp on your hands. And most dogs won't find toys sufficiently rewarding under distractions, so this is a very brief one-slide account of toys as a reward, because toys are not usually, for most breeds of dog, sufficiently rewarding when you're working under high distractions in the park. So sometimes if you've got a dog with, like a collie or like a German Shepherd, they can sometimes find toys incredibly rewarding, sometimes even more rewarding than food. So if you've got a dog like that, you might want to think about the use of toys a bit more. But for most dogs, it's going to be food, which is the thing that you're going to be using for your recalls. So here we go, food. All dogs are motivated by food. They need it for survival. So unlike toys, which some dogs are just not going to really be motivated by, all dogs are going to be motivated by food. If your dog is overfed, free-fed, or not hungry when you train, she or he is unlikely to value food as it seems abundant. So if you feed your dog too much and it's a bit plump, if you put a bowl of food down and there's always food available all day, so your dog can just go and tuck in whenever it wants to, or if your dog's not hungry because you just fed it when you train, then your dog's unlikely to be that motivated by the food because it doesn't have much desire for the food because it's full, basically. Your dog's favourite food should be used for recalls, so these are usually messy and smelly, so you might want to use something which is very nice for you to take out of your treat pouch in public, but your dog is probably going to prefer something messy and disgusting and smelly and gross. And you can always tip these things on the floor, you don't have to actually even touch them. But do prioritise what is tasty and not just what you would most like to handle. So here are some suggestions. Sardines, smelly fish of any description usually is very successful. Pate, again, it's usually quite cheap pate as well. You can cut it up into little cubes, and it is a bit of a messy one, and one you might just want to tip on the floor, but I think it's particularly delicious for dogs and very successful with recalls. Crab sticks, dogs like crab sticks. Again, smelly fish as well, and these things are not expensive either. They're very cheap, everything we've listed so far, and you can freeze crab sticks too, so you can always put them in the freezer if you buy a whole lot. Smoked mackerel, again, that lasts a long time too, and it's smelly fish, and oily smelly fish is usually very, very good. And gourmet dog food, so I think this costs about £2.50 a can, and if you try to feed it to a large breed dog, you'll probably have to remortgage your house. But if you feed it as a recall treat, it will last a long time, and you can cut it up into little chunks, and it tastes incredibly tasty, and your dog will work very hard for it. So you can always pick up a can of gourmet dog food. These treats here, we've got cocktail sausages, frankfurters, and cheddar. These are second-class treats, I would say. These are sort of things you want to be using for sits and downs and things like that, not for your extra bonanza super-duper recall treats, okay? So these kind of things are second-class treats, and they are lower value, probably, for most dogs than the things that I've just mentioned. How do we control the rewards which don't fit in your pocket? We prevent your dog from accessing them after the recall, thereby rewarding himself for doing the wrong thing, ignoring you. So these are things like meeting other dogs, like eating poo, like going to chase bunnies and birds. How do we control these rewards? Because we can't put them in your pocket. Well, we prevent your dog from accessing them by, well, we're going to say how. The only rewards available after the recall come from you, so that's quite important that you don't call and then your dog runs off and rewards itself by seeing another dog or by chasing a bird or a bunny, because you've called and your dog is then going to get the reward from somewhere else. So you want to make sure that you provide the rewards after the recall. So how do we prevent the dog from accessing these rewards in the environment that we can't put in our pocket with the long line? The role of repetition. So we're going to go into the long line thing a bit more in future weeks, so don't worry about that too much. The role of repetition. How do you know what is going to be rewarding and what isn't in your life? When you make those decisions about what you're going to do or not do, how do you know whether it's going to be a payoff or not? You know from experience. For example, you went to work and you got paid, so you kept going to work. If you went to work and you didn't get paid, would you keep going to work? You might go at first until you realised that they really weren't going to pay you, and then you'd stop. So it's the same for your dog. How does your dog know it's rewarding to ignore your recall and to do whatever he wants instead? Because he has done it many times and had the chance to learn it's rewarding. If your dog instead hit the end of a long line and never got to that other dog after the recall, would you keep trying to get there? Maybe for a while until he realised it wouldn't work. Then he would give up too. So that's the purpose of the long line. So, summary. Rewards are not just food and toys. Many of them you can't put in your pocket. A reliable recall is about manipulating rewards. Controlling access to as many as you can in your pocket, like toys and food, and removing access to all others after the recall phrase with the long line. Through repetition, the dog learns it is rewarding to do what you want and no other rewards are possible. So here's your homework for this week. I want you to observe your dog on walks, looking for her sources of rewards. Where does your dog get her kicks? Don't practice the recall yet, just observe. Don't do anything differently to what you usually do. Just observe what happens, and if you call or if you do something and your dog ignores you and does something else, think about what that other thing was that your dog chose to go and do. That was a reward. So observe those things and note them this week. And then come to the School for Dogs Google group, which you will have an invitation to, and join in the conversation about these sources of rewards, and let us know what your dog is finding rewarding this week and how to conceptualize this. We'll talk about how to conceptualize these things in terms of rewards and punishment and learning theory, so come along and tell us. And then buy some very, very tasty treats, such as those described here, for next week. So that's all.